It's not moving, it's fused together, so there's our problem.
When Captain Cook came through here in 1770, he realised he was at the end of something, and he was at the end of the Whitsunday group.
Did you say 46?
Yeah.
What? Crazy! What's going on now, darling? You've got your head down and your bum up.
Yeah, our water pump wasn't switching off properly, and it was doing weird things. So I've just gone in there, had a look at the wiring, and a good way to work out where your bad connection is just to feel all your connections, and if you feel a warm one, then that's where your problem is. So I've just gone through the wiring here. I haven't done the housekeepings on this pump yet, and I've found 2 connectors in series and a bit of bad wire, and it's all pretty shocking, and they're red hot. So I'm going to chop them out and do a proper connection. So that is our dodgy connector right there. That one and that one. So I don't know why they got 2 connectors, and it's just dodgy. Right.
Got him.
A dodgy bit of wiring. You feel that it's still warm.
I like this light on the camera, that's pretty cool.
I don't like these bullet connectors because they will always play up. Anyway, so I'm going to take this section out, and I'm just going to put a proper connector in between A and B.
What have we got here?
Well, we've got the box of tricks.
The box of beautiful tricks.
I've got these beautiful heat shrinkable crimp links, which are really good if used with the proper crimpers. They're fantastic.
All different sizes. Cool.
The reason the cable was getting hot at those high resistant joins is because it was drawing too much current. And the reason it's drawing too much current is because the pressure switch isn't switching the pump off when it gets to its 40, it can't be 40 psi. Anyway, when it gets to the appropriate pressure, which is usually around 15-18 psi. So I'm thinking there might be something gone awry with the pressure switch. So I'm just going to pull it apart, see if there's any muck in it, and see why it's not working properly. So it's the next little job. Usually they're adjustable. You have a screw here in the middle, and you can adjust the pressure, the pressure that the pressure switch switches on or off. But this one doesn't have that. But I do have a spare one of these. Just having a look on here. No, there's nothing written. I do have a spare. I've got a complete whole spare pump assembly. So if I can't find any problem with this, I'll put the new one in. Right. Sometimes these pressure switches inside the, what would you call it, diaphragm, piston area, get all gunged up and get like calcified lime in there, and stops this membrane pushing in properly and making a switch contact. But this one doesn't have much dirt in here at all. It's just got a little bit of gunk. It's just soft gunk. But anyway, I'll pull this apart, and what you've got is your water comes in through this hole, right? This usually attaches to here, and that attaches to there. So the water comes in through here, it goes into this area, and through this tiny little hole here, right? Then it comes out on this side. So sometimes also this hole is blocked, because it easily gets blocked. But generally in that case, the switch won't switch off, which is when it's doing. And then the water comes into this and pushes on this diaphragm to make a contact between these switches on off. So we're going to pull this apart and see if we can find a fault.
action.
Alright, so I've cleaned this out. It's fairly clean in there, so we get something that's soft, and you can push in here and you should hear a definite click click. Alright, that's pressure. It pressurized, switches off, unpressurized, switches on. So that's working. That's a lot of pressure. It's not usually that hard. And in here are your contacts. Because this is a fairly wet environment, sometimes you get water seepage coming down the side of these contacts on this particular model. And in here it's all green and mucky. But this one does not look too bad at all. So there's your actual switch there. So as this comes up, it lifts the copper and switches on and off.
It's not touching the contact.
That's interesting. What happens sometimes with old school switches like this is that the contacts will fuse together. And as you can see here, when I push this up, this should lift off the contact. And look, it's not moving, it's fused together. So there's our problem. So what I do now is gently prise this contact apart, get out some needle files, some flat needle file, and re-polish up this contact on the other side. On the other side of this is the contact, which you'll see next. So I've now prized this apart so the contact is free. So now we should be able to lift this out. There we go, get access to the contact, and look at that. See how it's all manky? I don't know if you can see there, the contact's pretty dull and pitted. Well, you can definitely see it on this one, right? See how horrible that looks. You might be able to clean this up, but it should be replaced. So this whole switch assembly should be replaced. But because we're out in the middle of the ocean at the moment, we've got to do the old MacGyver and fix it. So I don't have any needle files, but I do have this small, very fine file. So as you can see here, I'm just taking off all that bad surface and bringing it back to a nice shiny connector. Now you can see there's not much thickness left there. So I've had to take off quite a bit. There's a tiny little bit of pitting left. You don't really want any pittings because that's where you have a bad connection. Whoa, it's windy. As you can see, there's a difference in colour, right? This one's shiny, this one's dull. So now we've got to bring this one up to a shiny, so that when they mate, there's a nice smooth mating surface. At the moment, if you look at that through a microscope, you'd see thousands of little mountains, high resistance joint. And you can see by the colour of it, it's been getting hot. As you can see here now, it's lifting up, see? Break, contact, make, contact, break, make. So it's all working. Another thing to check on these is you pull this out and just check that no water has ever got through here and that's not starting to corrode. Because once this corrodes, you end up with all sorts of more problems. That's your disc that is sprung steel and bent, convex, concave, whatever you want, and that's what pushes against the contactor. So it goes in there, like it goes in there, like that. Magnus, put it the right way around, like that. So the dish is out because you're pushing against the dish, and the seal goes in, the lid goes back on, and it all gets screwed back together, and we'll see if it works. Now normally at home I'd connect this to an airline with a pressure gauge in, slowly turn the pressure up with a multimeter across here measuring the continuity and see what pressure it turns on and off at. But because we don't have those things on board, we don't have, I do have a compressor. Yeah, but you can't adjust the pressure. So anyway, I'll put that back in and see if it works. Well, you know how I mentioned that the contacts were pretty knackered? Well, they are. So this worked for about an hour, and then the contacts are now no good again. So I've got to find a new one of these when I get back home. So we've got our spare here. It's our brand new spare unit, which is a later model. And it also, remember I said to you, it was these were adjustable. That's our adjuster for the water pressure. The more you turn it in, the less pressure. Or is it more pressure? Anyway, I can't quite remember which way is which. This one has smaller terminals on it, so I've just chopped off the old terminals, and I've got some smaller ones we've put on there. So I'll put this in now, and we'll see if that'll fix it. If that doesn't fix it, we'll change a complete pump unit. But this should fix it, yeah. So one of these is the first thing I'm going to buy when I get home, because I always like to have a spare. The old pump was held in with 8 flat head screws. They were good in the 70s, but we're not there anymore. So let's get into the screw kit and find the right screw. It's a wobbly, the winds are blowing. Some good old Phillips by 10G, those should be fine. And I always like to have everything labelled so I know which size is where in my kits.
We moved to the other side of Hayman Island. We're now at Blue Pearl Bay. And at Blue Pearl Bay you see batfish. And if you put your feet in the water, they nibble at your big toe. So woken up to a beautiful morning. There was quite a storm last night, so we came in here for safety. And we're heading back to Airlie. It's about 6 in the morning. Making the most of the tide. Glorious though. So that was our little trip away.
Just going to hoist the main.
Is that enough?
Yeah.
Back to Airlie Beach. Had a few days away, which was rather nice. And now we're going back. The weather's a bit stormy, so we're leaving at 6, catching as much tide as we can. And I think it's forecast about 25 knots, but the beautiful girl loves that, so we're off.
When Captain Cook came through here in 1770, he'd been coming through all the different islands and shoals for the last sort of few weeks as he's coming up the coast. And he got to this spot right here, and he realised that there were no more islands. He couldn't see a single island as far as he could see, so he realised he was at the end of something, and he was at the end of the Whitsunday group of 100 and something islands. So he anchored, I don't know exactly where, but I would have said he would anchor here. And then he climbed to the top of this hill up here. Just over the brow of this hill is another hill. And he climbed to the top of that hill, which I've landed on lots of times in helicopters. Sort of put one skid down on a rock and jumped out because there's a radio tower up there that we used to repair and service. But anyway, back to my story. So him and Joseph Banks climbed to the top of Cook Hill, and he got out his telescope, his eyeglass, and he couldn't see any reef, he couldn't see any islands, he couldn't see anything. So he realised that this was a point where he'd have to, he'd be starting like a new part of the journey. And when you read his log, which is an incredible read, he mentions that this is sort of where it all changed. So yeah, this is sort of where you get into the wet tropics north of here, or north of Townsville. So, but then there's another island group that starts. But anyway, that's another story for when we're up there. So that's, yeah, it's not nice to think that the Endeavour could have been anchored right here, you know. I love that sort of stuff. And there's going to be more of that to come when we get up north, up in Kimberley. And we follow retrace some real famous explorers, the French, the English, that were up there. You know, people like Parker and Matthew Flinders. There was a whale, Matthew Flinders, and the whales are passing through here last night. We were sitting out there having a couple of beers, watching them go by, and they're out there at the moment. Yeah, beautiful spot. Anyway, that's enough of my rambling. See you.
Yeah, and we're off. Just got a bit of wind. We thought there wasn't going to be any for a while there. Woohoo! Sailing, sailing. Peanut's got new, what are they called? Reflectors. One at the front, across the top, so we can see it from a distance. Is that right?
Well, we can see it with our stern light.
I can see it with
night, so you know it's behind us.
And then we've got one on the port side, one on the starboard side, so we know if she's behind us directly or whichever. And then, what else we got? She's got port and starboard nav lights. And yeah, the pimping continues. A few more things left, but not much now.
There's a little walking track from the beach here that goes up to that spur and then along the ridgeline there to the top. And whenever it was too windy to land a chopper up there, we'd have to do the walk, which was a nice walk.
Yeah.
With carrying all your test equipment and spares and parts. Yeah, it was heavy. It was a good walk.
At this moment, no one can tell where we should go or what's coming. Thought we had it, the truth about
Lots of bullets.
Yeah, it's windy. Pin of my ears back.
You let me know when it drops off and I'll pass you your coffee. There you go, darling. One cup of
Thank you.
beer. Cheers.
pretending life was sorrow. Couldn't embrace the notion.
Beautiful.
Certainly is beautiful.
Best sailing conditions in the world in the Whitsundays that I've ever seen.
Yeah. It's flat, but it's windy.
Yeah. So this week, or the last few days, we left Airlie Beach, which is down here, and we sailed a lovely sail up. We crossed through the... No, we didn't. We went this way. We went up here, past Stonehaven, up past Langford, up past Black, and then through this strait, and then we tucked in here in Butterfly Bay, and then we sailed from there. We tried to go through here, but our timing wasn't the best, and the wind was blowing through and the tide was against us, so we got about a quarter of the way through. We turned around and we went up and around the top of Hayman Island, and we anchored here just off the point in Blue Pearl Bay. This morning we've left Blue Pearl Bay, and as you can see where we are with the red dot, and that's where we're going, where the red line is, which takes us all the way back to our anchorage in Pioneer Bay. And we should be there in about 17 miles. We're doing an average of 4 knots, so 4.5 hours. We'll be back there, all going well. Just caught a fish.
For the first time in?
A long time. Yeah, it's got a Spanish mackerel on board, no little one, but it'll do for tonight's dinner.
It's undersized, so it's going back. Put it back in.
There we go.
It's, what is it, 5 centimetres undersized?
Yeah.
Yeah. Blowing about 30 knots.
How can I be sure? Can we change it? The truth about our common
66.
Yeah.
What? Crazy.
Something beautiful, something beautiful.